Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce you now. Kyle Hulbert is the CEO of the Longevity Center, the co host of Longevity Unlocked, and a wellness and integrative nutrition coach specializing in detoxification. In 2019, Kyle was struggling with alcoholism, anxiety, and depression while living a dream life in Dubai and finishing his master's. In 2021, Kyle found Dr. Benjamin Kosubevsky, who ran several tests that most other doctors overlook, and discovered that the root cause was heavy metal toxicity and low testosterone. Addressing these issues changed everything for Kyle and sent him into a deep dive into detox, integrative health, and biohacking, which led him to earn multiple coaching certifications. Following this, Kyle left his family business and he and Dr. K co founded the Longevity Center to make advanced health treatments more accessible to everyone. Within 1 year, they've helped 1,500 people detox, heal, and rejuvenate and expanded to a second location. I was fortunate enough to be hosted on the podcast we mentioned, Longevity Unlocked, where we had a super fun and engaging conversation. Kyle Holbert, we're naturally honored to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Well, I'm honored to be here, Casey.
It's an honor to host you. I said I was on your show recently, and recently means about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, we just did the podcast swap thing. We log out of one app and you log into the next one, and here we are again.
Here we are. Well, guaranteed. You spent the time talking to me, and now we'll get into the really compelling and good stuff hearing your story. Now that we got my nonsense out of the way, you're basically acting as a interruption in my watching the Olympics this year. Do you get into the Olympics very much?
Yeah, actually, this year I am going to the Olympics.
No.
I leave in a few days, actually, and I have a friend of mine who is bobsledding. He's in the top sled for Team USA. So we're going to be there with my
That
7 month son holding the baby up with the USA beanie. So
yes,
I'm
yeah,
very
the
excited.
Simba
Yep,
camp.
yep.
Dude, that's amazing. That
Hmm.
is super super cool. Have you watched him before
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
doing
Yeah.
bobsled?
Yeah, we've watched him and I mean, he just did one a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I think it was like the national or world championship. We watched the national championship, so we've kind of followed him as he's progressed.
That's super cool.
Funny
That's
story. I
amazing.
mean, the guy just decided he was going to bobsled. And he was like, yeah, like he graduated college, he was working for a few years, and he was like, I'm going to be a bobsledder. And then he just went and did it and then hit every team, and now he's going to the Olympics.
That's incredible. That well, how would you just decide that? That's amazing.
It's wild.
Wow. That's crazy. So I'm fortunate enough to live in the Salt Lake City Valley here in Utah. And so we've had the Olympics back in 2002. We're going to get the Olympics in 8 years, which is going to be another amazing experience. We're only one of two places in the country that has a bobsledding track. You basically either have to come here or you have to go to Lake Placid if you want to train for bobsledding. So I'm sure you spent plenty of time up at Park City at the training facility. That was one of two events that I went to in 2002 was the bobsled. And we were down a little bit further on the track. So they're going very fast by the time we're there. The track is like vertical, dude. Like it's not like horizontal at all. It's straight sideways. And they start their run and you're just standing there in this huge crowd of people and nothing's happening. You hear the announcers going bonkers. They're coming down and you start to feel it. Like you feel this like little rumble, and that's a bigger rumble and a bigger rumble. And then you hear it, and then whoa, like right in front of you come these sleds going like 80 miles an hour. It's insane.
That is wild. I'm excited to go see it in person because I've only seen it on the TV. So
Oh man, yeah, I think you're gonna love it. It was one of my favorite events to go to. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, have an awesome time while you're there. Are you going to any other events while you're there?
no, that's the only event we're going to, but we're making a trip out of it. Munich and Austria and Venice.
Amazing,
So
amazing. Enjoy that. That's going to be great, man. Okay, so we mentioned the word longevity quite a bit in the introduction. That is definitely a buzzword and has been for quite some time. Um, it's really interesting in this last at the time of this recording in the last few weeks there have been some information about a very famous longevity doctor who found himself on the wrong side of certain emails with a certain Jeremy Epstein in his hot water, and it was interesting to see the response on social media. People had things to say, obviously, about the things that he was saying, but I was really surprised. I don't know if I was surprised. It was interesting how many people came out by saying, like, oh, I knew it. This guy's a snake oil salesman, and all this longevity nonsense and biohacking and all this stuff. Like, there was a lot of kind of hatred towards the longevity space. I'm just kind of curious. Have you noticed any of that as well? I know you don't get into the same kind of things that he was getting himself into as far as what he recommends for people, but where are we in the state of like what the longevity space looks like?
Yeah. So I would have to say that did not affect us at all. Um, really, people on social media, I think, just want to target. And it's a place to crucify people who do bad things and make mistakes. Some rightly so, and some not so much. But I can't say it's really affected us in any way, shape, or form. I think because of our approach for accessibility and making this more affordable, and kind of the very heavy science-based treatments that we offer, it's really not something that people can say, "Hey, it's snake oil," just because everything we do is quantitatively measured.
Yeah.
So like we have the before and after results, and it is what it is. But in terms of the like longevity space as a whole, I mean, the longevity industry is set to be the largest industry in the world sometime in the 2030s. It's going to pass oil and gas. I think it's 2036 is the estimate.
Wow.
The money being poured into the longevity industry, most of it is biotech research, like all these things that are like future leaning science. But there's still a lot of money being poured into investments for things like longevity clinics and things like that. But it's in the zeitgeist. People are really keying into not just lifespan, but also health span. You know, we hear that a lot. But really, they just want to feel good and live a good life. And so, like for longevity centers, like the our meaning of that is not that we're going to extend your life to 150. That's not our meaning of it. We're going to remove the interruptions. We're going to remove the toxins. We're going to help people get their inflammation down. We're going to help get chronic viruses in remission, things like that, so they can live a happier, healthier life.
Yeah. One of the things you said to me off air before we even started recording really stood out to me, and you kind of just reiterated it there. You're not getting into the longevity space to make tons more money. You said you're trying to democratize things and make things more accessible, like we said in the introduction. That to me really sets you apart from some of the things we're seeing with, again, like doctors working with uber rich famous people for six figures a year and all kinds of different things that maybe is kind of approaching snake oil. I don't see that with your work, and so I think that's a pretty cool distinction.
Yeah, and that's I go back to a pivotal conversation I had with my business partner, the physician. Before we opened, we were pricing everything. And he set the price for some of our biologic injections, some of our highest, most powerful offerings for joint regeneration, stuff like that. And he's like, "Hey, this is what I want to price it at." And I was like, "Dude, as your business guy, the margin's too low. Like, we can't keep the lights on." And he looked at me and he said, "I don't care. People need it. We will figure it out. You need to figure out how to keep the lights on." And I said, "Okay, this is the right guy." I said, okay, let me do my job then and figure out the rest of it.
That's amazing. What a great story. I love that.
Yeah.
We shared a little bit of your story in the introduction, but let's go back. This is not a field that you thought you'd be getting yourself into. Obviously, we mentioned recently getting more certifications and that kind of thing to be able to kind of hang in this space. But yeah, tell us how you ended up here.
Yeah. So I have a background in construction. My family business grew up always thinking that I would go run the family business one day. We build custom homes. That's what my family does. Um, and so I went to school for business, and my path was, hey, I was just going to go work for the family business. And through schooling and travel, I kind of started to see the world and see there were other things out there. And kind of started to get the feeling that maybe, building houses forever wasn't for me. Um, but what was interesting is while I was on my master's degree, I started picking up all these symptoms, just random symptoms. So it actually probably started in undergrad. I was fatigued, right? I was a collegiate rower and I didn't drink, I didn't party at that time. Like I ate clean, I worked out, I was doing all the right things, and I was just like falling asleep in class. And that kept getting worse and worse. And I did all the things. I did all the diets, did all the I did vegan, I did carnivore, I did keto, I did whole foods, paleo, did it all. Nothing seemed to really move the needle on the fatigue. Move into my master's degree, and other symptoms start to pop up. Gut problems, joint pain, um, allergies. Like I'm allergic to everything now. It's like, what is going on with that? Mental health problems started popping up. Like objectively, I'm living a perfect life. I'm doing my master's degree in a rotation in Dubai. I'm staying in this like apartment on the 23rd floor, and I'm thinking I should jump off this balcony. Like that's where my head was at. Depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. And I was just like, what is wrong with me? Like what is going on? Like I do all the right things and I feel like garbage and my mental health is terrible. And so that led me, because of my schooling, I was familiar with research. That led me to start doing some research on myself, cruising PubMed. Um, and I'll get into a little bit more about that. But it kind of led me down the podcast rabbit hole. So I started listening to podcasts, just eating them up, right? Started reading books on health and wellness. And I found this guy, Dave Asprey. I'm sure people know who he is. By the way, cool guy. I've met him, hung out with him. He is exactly who he is on the podcast.
Wow, cool. That
So,
is great to know.
so a side note, they say don't meet the people you look up to, but he's like exactly the same.
Wow, that's cool. I might not have guessed that, frankly.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
So I ended up going to I listened to his podcast. I ended up going to one of his biohacking conferences. And these are weird places, right? If you're not familiar with like the biohacking space, like listen, I'm a self-proclaimed biohacker, but biohackers are nut jobs. Right? They're self-experimentation, like we're doing crazy stuff, but it's like an atmosphere so full of acceptance and love. Like it's a room full of 2,000 people and you can go hug anyone and they would just be like, "Yeah, let's go." And so I'm in this atmosphere, right? I'm looking for answers. I'd been to 6 doctors at the time. None of them, half of them told me they couldn't find anything. The other half said I was making it up, which led me to kind of be looking for a doctor at this conference. And so I go to one of the booths and it's like a concierge something or other. And so I sign up for it. It's like $450 a month. You meet with a doctor once a quarter and they kind of go over your lab work and stuff like that. Um, he really helped me optimize my hormones. And I got to tell you, that and a previous experience with an integrative physician I had a few years prior, the hormone optimization completely flipped the script on my mental health. I'm talking in a week, anxiety, depression, mental health massively improved. Like suicidal thoughts were gone. Within a month, I had zero mental health symptoms. Zero. All because of low testosterone. So I'm working with this doctor. He gets my hormones balanced and he goes, "You know what, dude? I'm glad we got you feeling a little better. But see, here's the thing. You're young. You do all the right things from lifestyle. It's not your diet. It's not your lifestyle. There's a root cause here." And so he was like, "I want you to go see a buddy of mine and go get a heavy metals test." I was like, "Heavy metal? I don't, okay. Yeah, let's go do some heavy metals test." And so I drive for 4 hours to this doctor's office to go get a heavy metals test. And sure enough, I have crazy levels of mercury in my blood. Or sorry, not in my blood, in my tissues. And he says, "Go to this other doctor I have in my network. It's one of my physicians." And the doctor who ended up treating me, that's now my business partner, Dr. Benjamin Kosubevsky, Dr. K, we call him. And little by little through this treatment, I started to turn the corner. I would lose 1 to 3 pounds after every IV, just water weight, inflammation, just pouring out of me. Um, and after 10, I started to really turn that corner. Symptoms started dropping off, just boom, boom, boom. Allergies got better, gut health got better, energy got better, fatigue like gone. And that's when I realized, hey, there's something here. So at that time, I was actually in my doctorate degree in business, but really a doctorate degree is really just how to do research. So there was like a ton of courses I took on research. And so I just deep dove into it. I'm reading every single study, every single meta-analysis I can get my hands on mercury detox, on heavy metals, on this integrative health stuff. And it's really cool because like, that training allowed me to read a study from a perspective of like, hey, this is a good study. This is the design. Let's check the conflicts of interest, that kind of stuff. And I just was really passionate about it. So I dug in, I dove in deeper, created my own protocols in and ran it by the doctor I was working with, and he was like, you know what? Seems safe enough. Let's try it. And through that process of just kind of refining and researching and diving in, it became clear to me like, hey, this is something I want to do because this changed my life. Right. So I told him, hey, if you ever want to open your own shop, you give me a call. So one day he gave me that call and I was like, well, let's rock and roll. And then we ended up
That's
opening the longevity centers.
that's amazing. And yeah, two now. Yeah, we mentioned in the
Hmm.
introduction. Got two of them.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep. So we opened a second one in our first year, actually, and we have a third one slated for this year.
Wow. That's awesome. That tells you the need is there. There's people that need to find this information. And yeah, what an amazing story. What would you say? What was the heavy metal toxicity? Heavy metal was that the cause of all the different symptoms? That
It
definitely
really
was the root,
was.
starting with the hormones.
Yeah, it really was. So um, people who have a bunch of symptoms usually have one of two cases. They have one underlying root that's just this big thing, right? Or they have these seven things that are all just kind of co-infections and co-problems that create all these problems. For me specifically, it really was the mercury toxicity. That was my big thing. And so it was almost a direct one-to-one. The more mercury I got out of my body, the better I felt.
Got it.
Um,
Wow.
and
Go ahead.
mercury affects each heavy metal has target tissues. Mercury loves the brain. And so I had a lot of mercury my whole life growing up. And so where it manifested in me primarily originally was the pituitary system. That's what caused the shutdown of my testosterone, the shutdown of my thyroid, the shutdown of my growth hormone production. All those things were just basically destroyed by all the toxic mercury I had in my system.
Wow. And isn't mercury in the brain? Isn't that the Mad Hatter thing?
It is. I like that you know that. That goes back to the history of mercury, but it was used as a dye in hats. And so that's where the term came from, Mad Hatter. Mad as a hatter, because they would literally go crazy.
Wow.
Another major source is amalgams, silver fillings. Like people talk about this a lot. I think it's one of the reasons that if you look at all medical professionals, the highest rate of suicide, dentists. It's because they're
Yeah,
dealing and working around mercury on a daily basis.
yeah. My wife's grandfather, before he passed away, suffered with Parkinson's disease for decades. Really, really long time. Really bad case. And he was working with a lot of those mercury fillings as well. Yeah, that's crazy. What were the sources for you? Were you working with dyes and hats and lots of crowns or something?
Yeah, at 7 years old, I was in the hat factory just
Yeah,
grinding them.
exactly.
No, so I kind of had it all, quite frankly. So my mom had amalgam fillings, and it's been shown that heavy metals transfer to the baby in the womb. And anecdotally, we see that the firstborn gets the brunt of it, and I was the firstborn. So we started with that. I was born during a period in which, we're going to phrase it this way, certain injections were given to certain age children, which contains certain toxic chemicals.
Just got us canceled.
Yeah. So I had the entire schedule, which comes with a heavy burden. And then, focusing, like I grew up and, my dad was always into athletics and working out and stuff like that. So, I wanted to get my protein in. And the best way to get your protein in for cheap and quick and lean, cans of tuna and just
Yeah,
just tons of cans of tuna. And I grew up in Florida, so grouper, lobster, the big fish, stuff like that. And so that all compounded. So I kind of had a little bit of all of it.
perfect storm of all that
Yep.
stuff. Yeah,
Hmm.
wow. Yeah, when you're considering fish, the bigger animals, like the bigger fish, like you said, have more time to accumulate some of that stuff. So that's really important to consider. Wow. Okay, so let's go back to your first step in healing. You mentioned hormone optimization. I think there's a lot of myths and misconceptions when we say hormone optimization. Is this something the doctor just gave you a bunch of tea and you needed to do this? Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I started before I worked with that concierge doctor. And I would say what I did with the concierge doctor was hormone optimization, right? Before I started with him, I started with another integrative physician. And when I worked with him, I would do what I call hormone replacement therapy. And I draw a distinction between these two. Hormone replacement therapy means like, let's just knock off the symptoms and get you to where you feel like a human again. Hormone optimization is like, hey, let's dial this into the perfect optimal ranges across the board. And so when I started, I was young. I was like 21. And so that first physician put me on HCG, which kind of stimulates your body to produce its own testosterone. And later I ended up switching to enclomiphene just because it's easier and generally more effective. It's a capsule as opposed to an injection. So these are two ways you can stimulate production internally without using exogenous testosterone replacement. Down the line, I ended up switching to injections as part of my testosterone optimization protocol, dialing in thyroid with all natural MP thyroid, dialing in my growth hormone and things like that. And I've used all kinds of forms of testosterone. So, I mean, if you want to dive into that conversation, we can.
I mean, I guess I would just like to know, like, the hormone replacement therapy has gotten such a bad rap in the last, 20 years or so, based on some really bad data that was shown, and a claim that got out of the bag, and that cat was never going to get back in the bag about, women's health and breast cancer and all kinds of stuff that is carrying on to this day and is causing a lot of damage for a lot of people who this is really helping quite a bit. So again, side effects, were there any risks, were the things they were worried about, like anything along those lines, or was it pretty smooth sailing and constant kind of improvement?
Yeah, so I'll take a step back and address the controversy with hormone replacement therapy. Um, Two big controversial things, one for women, one for men, right? So men, it's been basically the gold standard in medical zeitgeist that if you have testosterone replacement therapy, you increase your risk for prostate cancer, right? And if you have prostate cancer, you cannot have testosterone replacement therapy because it will make it worse. And so often these men are given like testosterone blockers, if you will,
That's right.
and
Yeah,
it
that's right.
shuts down testosterone. So a study came out a few years ago, basically completely debunking that. I don't even know how they got the study approved, but basically they showed that men with prostate cancer or who had prostate cancer actually had better. It wasn't statistically significant, but they did slightly have better outcomes than men who were not on it, while having a much, much, much higher quality of life. So,
Wow.
that was a really well done study, by the way. It was an excellent study.
I am
Um,
not familiar with any of that. That's fascinating.
oh yeah, yeah. So I'll have to dig that up for you.
Wow.
But yeah, that was craziness when it hit in the integrative world, and it was largely ignored by mainstream medical. So, I mean, you can still go to doctors to this day. In fact, a family member of mine went to their general practitioner, and this family member was on testosterone, and he took him off it because he had an elevation of PSA.
Wow.
When one does not equal the other,
I just
it
wondered
does
that.
not
That's
work
super
like
interesting.
that.
Wow.
So that's the men's side of things. The women's side of things, I'm sure you know about the breast cancer study where they had to shut it down,
Yeah.
right? And if you look at this, it's like hormones 101 for integrative medicine. You cannot give like estrogen by itself. You have to give it in conjunction with progesterone. And on top of that, don't give progestin, give progesterone, the real bioidentical form. And so this study was very badly designed with just estrogen, which led to a massive increase in breast cancer. And they shut the study down. And because of that terrible outcome, that basically just like dug the grave for hormone replacement therapy. There's been a lot of research that's come out since showing that if you use estrogen in combination with progesterone, hey, the system works like it's intended to. It's balanced and it is safe. And the quality of life is way higher. So that's kind of the women's side of it.
Got it. Thank you for sharing both of those. I had a client, he was in his 70s. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer. They did exactly what you said. gave him something to block his testosterone. It was down next to nothing, and his PSA was really low, and they were super happy about it. And I don't know why. I always just kind of smelled a rat. I didn't know, exactly why. I just didn't see it as a really great idea. So that's very interesting about the research. So yeah, so the hormone optimization that changes over time with somebody, levels can change. You're just always just trying to like make sure that the patient is feeling good, especially in your case. It's not the same thing that you've done this entire time. It's always been something that's kind of shifted around.
Yeah, yeah. Hormone optimization. So I like to differentiate. Hormone replacement therapy is doing what you need to do to mitigate symptoms, right? Hormone optimization is, hey, yes, we've mitigated the symptoms, but we've also dialed in all the supporting hormones. We're not just looking at estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, whatever it might be. We're also looking at thyroid, growth hormone, things like that. And we're not using the reference ranges, we're using the optimal ranges. And on top of that, it's constantly moving. Everything's changing. Hey, maybe your form's a little different. Maybe you're converting too rapidly to DHT based on cream usage, so we need to go to injections. That kind of ebb and flow, that's testosterone optimization therapy. And it's really based in two key principles. One, objective and subjective, right? How are you feeling as the patient? What are your symptoms or what feels great? That's the subjective. And the objective is where are your numbers? Where are all the levels of these hormones and are they in the optimal range, not just the reference range?
That's an important thing. I'm really glad you reiterated that. Those reference ranges can be very embarrassing, or they can change all of a sudden. If they decide they want to, use more medications for things like those, that the reference ranges are pretty bad. The ranges for optimization are much better. And I'm glad you brought up the subjective and objective. Can you maybe confirm this? I've always heard that the subjective is more important than the objective when it comes to those levels. Like, say you're trending a little bit low, but you feel amazing and you don't have any symptoms and your sexual health is good. That's more important than getting a number to a certain target, correct?
I would tend to agree to that. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
basically, and vice versa is actually what you see a lot of times. So you might see, like our provider team has discussed multiple cases and stuff like that. But like you will see people come in with a testosterone of 700 and you would say, okay, well, that's really not that bad. But you look at the list of symptoms and it's like screaming low testosterone, right? And then you get them to 1100 and then, oh my gosh, their entire world just changed and all their symptoms are gone. So, but some people, like say if you're overweight, you got a lot of fat to lose. If you push it over 700, you're probably going to get a cascade of other symptoms because of too much aromatization. You're going to have way too much conversion into estrogen. And so you've got to kind of base it on the subjective while using the objective as, hey, here's our guidelines, here's our targets.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That is very well explained. I've got some heavy metal questions for you, but first, we're going to take a quick distraction. We're going to just briefly talk about something else real quick. You taught me while we were doing your recording that you found that your podcast has an optimal length in time. Can you share with us what that length of time is and what happens when you pass that length of time?
Yeah, so our optimal length of time is about 30 minutes.
Okay.
So when we pass 30 minutes, our listeners stop listening, except for my mother. My mother always listens.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. That's
And
great. Well,
Dr. K's mom too. But what
okay.
happens,
Perfect.
I think it's a commuter podcast. I think people listen to us on their drive, and usually, kind of in the areas we're based, that's around the 30-minute mark. And
Got
so
it.
we
Okay.
we think that people just are going to work or coming back from work, and they listen to the podcast, and if it goes too long, they just turn it off.
Okay, well, I'm bringing this up because it's minute 29 of our conversation. So those of you watching and listening out there, do not turn us off. You don't have anything better to do. This conversation continue to get better hearing Kyle's story. So after that, a PSA announcement, we can get back to asking you about your own journey. On the heavy metal side of things, there's so much of what you described was completely out of your control. You know, eating the tuna, you had no idea. It's something you did, but you didn't know. Being born to your mother and that carried like there's so many things that are outside of your control. Um, how common is heavy metal toxicity? Is this a problem that is way, way bigger than people think because of all these things that are just like so far outside of most people's awareness and control?
I would have to say yes. And so I'll pop in and say, this is my little disclaimer. This is not medical advice. This is for educational purposes only, all of that, yada, yada. But, and you might have that on your intro already or outro. But, you know, I think, and this is a theory, so this is just based on what I've seen. I don't think that we have a mental health crisis in America. I think we have a heavy metal crisis. I think if you look at the accumulation of heavy metals and how they pass from generation to generation, starting with the Industrial Revolution, I think we've hit a tipping point in which babies are being born with high levels of heavy metals from the get-go, which leads them to having mental health symptoms in their teens while they're growing up and in their early 20s. I think that's kind of one of the main roots here. In practice, what we see is anywhere from our estimation is probably 25 to 35% of the population has some sort of heavy metal issue. Yeah. Some of this is based in genetics. Some of this is based in, things completely outside of their control. A great example is like if you have Japanese ancestry, you can eat tuna because genetically, Japanese people have the genes to kind of see that type of mercury and clear it as a toxin because that was such a mainstay part of their diet. And so that's like one example of the positive, but the MTHFR and, all the detox pathways, you can have mutations in those. And so basically some of it's genetic, some of it is exposure based. But we've kind of estimated 25 to 35% of the population.
That's high, and that is a very interesting and strong statement about mental health. Um, I know you had no reservations making it, which gives me confidence that you know what you're saying and what you're talking about. That's a really interesting statement. And yeah, if those things are getting passed down from mother to daughter, and you're stacking generation after generation, I would expect there to be some kind of a problem. It's very interesting to consider. So what
And
is? Oh, go ahead.
and the reason I say that and I have this theory is because of what I see, right? Because of what I experienced, one, but what I see in our clinic. I see people's mental health drastically improving all the time with getting rid of their heavy metals. Like
Wow.
it's just so clear.
Wow.
Inflammation's down. They feel better. Oh my goodness, their mindset's more positive. They're less crazy. Sometimes you feel crazy. Like you pull the heavy metals out, sometimes you are less crazy.
Wow. Fascinating. That is absolutely fascinating. So I have maybe a little bit of an idea of what this could be, but I'm not entirely confident. What are some of the fixes? Like, what were some of the things that you had to go through to detoxify heavy metals? This can't be a simple, weekend long, sit in the sauna a few times. What kinds of things are we dealing with? I would imagine there would have to be some kind of like a binder, a chelator, something that like gets with these metals and helps them exit the body in a safe way.
Yep. The go-to is just intensive juice cleanses. No, I'm totally joking. Absolutely not. And I throw that out there as a joke, but actually, some of these juice cleanses for heavy metal detox are potentially dangerous. So, like cilantro is a great example. That is actually potentially dangerous if you have a high burden of heavy metals. So, if we look at the science of it, let's pick mercury as since that's what we're talking about. Mercury has two thiol bonds, right? And so there are a lot of things that have one thiol bond that will bind weakly. And if it binds weakly, it means it's going to be pulled out of its receptor and it's going to be dropped somewhere else in the body. That's retox. So you've just moved toxins around in the body. And if it has two thiol bonds, it's a permanent bind, it's a strong bind. And then the body can actually remove it and excrete it. And so there are not many things out there with two thiol bonds. There's one supplement, and then there's a couple chelating agents. Chelating is a word. It comes from the Greek claw to kind of like claw onto a heavy metal and pull it out of the body.
Didn't know that.
So there's a couple of chelating agents which are through prescription through a physician, and that's what I did. So I did DMPS, and basically it's an IV, and it goes into a vein, and it goes throughout your body, attaches to mercury, binds to it, and then you excrete it out over the next 8 to 24 hours.
What is the excretion process like? Are there symptoms of the excretion? Is it something that just comes out of feces? Like, what does that look like as it's leaving the body?
Yeah, yeah. So depending on your symptoms, that's usually what you'll feel when you're detoxing. So it's usually an exacerbation of what you feel on a day-to-day basis. So if your symptoms are brain fog, fatigue, and gut problems, chances are for the next 24 to 48 hours, you're going to have a little heavier brain fog, fatigue, and gut problems. And so the first few I did, because brain fog was a big one, I'm telling you, man, I was like drunk. I was like, where am I? Like trying to keep the car straight on the road. Like, whoa. It was not fun. But as you go through the process, as you get rid of it, it gets better and better and better.
How do you know when you've arrived? Is there always like benefits from doing more and you don't know how much better you could feel by continuing to go? Or do you just get to this point of like, I think I got most of the way there and you don't need to continue with treatments?
No, we test it. So you come in, you do a test every 10th treatment based on your numbers. So it might be a few less, or if you need more than 10, it's every 10th treatment. You'll do a test. You'll see where your numbers are. You can see them fall down on the lab. And when we get sub, we use a doctor's data test. Our range is like sub 4. But if you're in the green, that's about the range that, hey, you've done it. You've gotten rid of your mercury.
Got it. Okay, interesting. You mentioned something earlier, and you kind of corrected yourself, which I think was important. You said that these toxins that are in our blood, and then you stopped yourself and you said, well, actually, in the tissues. You mentioned the brain being one. What tissues are accumulating this kind of stuff? I think this is really important to address.
All of them. um, Depending on the heavy metal is the target tissue. So like mercury likes the liver, the gut, the brain. Um, Lead likes the bones. So each heavy metal has a different target, and so interesting enough, like you can actually test a woman's lead levels at different parts of her cycle, and it will actually fluctuate because of the bone mineral density fluctuating in and out.
Wow. Hmm.
Yeah. So heavy metals look like minerals to the body. And so there's a mineral receptor. And here's so if that's the lock, the minerals receptor, and the key is the mineral, the heavy metal has the same teeth on the key as the mineral does. But the back part of the key, the handle is different. And this is what causes the problems and blocks the minerals from being able to do what they're supposed to do. And so based on where those receptors are generally where that target of that heavy metal likes to go.
Got it.
And then the caveat, the catch-all here is fat. So just about all toxins are stored away in fat as a protective mechanism because it's fairly avascular.
Got it. So as somebody is losing weight, losing fat in particular, can they be releasing some of these toxins as well?
Yes, and this is probably why most people feel like garbage if they lose weight too fast. You're losing, you're expelling the toxins faster than your body can clear them.
Got it. Got it. Now you talked about this like kind of acute phase, I guess I'll call it, like within 24 to 48 hours. Is there any long-term effects? Like, for example, you see this quite commonly if somebody has been vegan for a long time, they've been eating a lot of high oxalate foods, they will have dumping periods, but these are waves that will come like every 6 months or 8 months. And like they were painful going into the tissues and they were quite painful coming out of tissues. And you can see oxalate being treated through the skin or people get kidney stones. And
Hmm.
it's not like linear. It's not like 48 hours after. It could be months of feeling better, and then all of a sudden it starts to kind of flare up. Is there any possibility of that with heavy metals?
There is a possibility. However, I mean, we've had a few cases like that, but for the most part, it's fairly linear.
Got it. Okay.
So, yeah, if you're a week out from your last treatment, what you're feeling is most likely not related to the chelation.
Got it. Okay. Other components of detoxification. Are there helpful supplements? Is a sauna, for example, here that's great for detoxification. Is that a good tool? Like what are some of the other key things that can help with this process? Or is what you're describing the one or two supplements and one or two like more like medication almost? It's like are there other things that you can be doing to help with this?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do in terms of support and help. And I wanna parse that, right? Support, help, not detox. Right? Because if we are trying to detox heavy metals through juice cleanses or this lineup of 10 different supplements that I found online, it is either not going to work or be potentially dangerous, most likely, if it is heavy metals. There are other things you can detox just fine through supplement protocols. Like oxalate, I have a very, very good oxalate detox protocol that's based in supplements. That's pretty normal. Heavy metal specifically, um, you're really looking at one supplement which I am not going to name because I do not want people to go out and take it because you need to be under the care of someone who knows what they're doing. And then the rest are prescriptions. Um, so for heavy metals, I would say, yeah, in terms of actually detoxing, no. Now, the support side of things is different. Infrared sauna, love that for detox support. Is this going to be a deep tissue-based detox? No. You look at the penetration of the infrared light, you're going to be detoxing through sweat, maybe, I don't know, that much into the body. You're not going to be detoxing your organs. It's just not going to get there. Is it a great adjunct? Absolutely. Sweating is amazing for helping the system clear toxins. Sweating, making sure you're drinking enough water. That's a massive support system. You need to be clearing the water. Lymphatic drainage. That's another excellent one to support. Help move that lymph fluid out. Help because if your lymph fluid's stagnant, you're just holding on to water weight, you're holding on to inflammation, you're holding on to toxins, helping that flow out. Anything that supports your detox organs as well, so like NAC, things like that, um, those are very beneficial as well.
Okay, great. We'll talk about nutrition here in a second, but while we're kind of on the subject of supplementation, are there certain supplements? I know this is highly individual, so this is a very general question. Are there certain supplements you believe most people could probably benefit from getting more of?
Yes. You ready?
I'm ready.
There's five and a bonus.
Okay. I
So omega threes, good non-oxidated source.
was gonna ask. Gonna
Yes.
ask.
Um, I would say a B complex. If you're not eating carnivore or large quantities of meat, most people could benefit from a B complex. Trace minerals. So just a mineral complex, getting all the micro minerals and things that you need. Fat soluble vitamins A, D, K, E. And then I like to throw in creatine as the bonus.
Okay. Man, I'd almost like creatine into you need six. It's so important. Okay, yeah. So, question on the omega three. We're hearing a little bit more of this. It's not the same, but similar, like we mentioned, with fish that are bioaccumulating heavy metals. We eat those; those get into our body. You're hearing different stories out there. I used to blanket recommend omega threes to everybody. I had, they said the ones we were selling were third party tested. I have no idea if they actually were or not, what they contain, but you hear that there is quite the risk of these oils oxidizing the polyunsaturates. How do you balance that? And do you make certain decisions about where you're selecting your omega threes, or is it just kind of like most other supplements out there? It's a bit of a crapshoot.
Yeah. So some of this is a crapshoot, some of it is marketing. Um, a lot of the talk about it being oxidized and it containing heavy metals is put out there by companies that are trying to sell omega 3s to say theirs is better. So if you look at the actual like oxidation ratio on decent brands of omega 3, it's fairly dang low. Like, sure, if you go buy some garbage omega 3 at like Walmart or like CVS or wherever, yeah, you run that risk. But if you buy a high quality, reputable brand, the oxidation level in that is fairly low.
Okay.
Um, the third party testing is really something that I truly believe in. And if it says third party tested, you can email them and ask for the COA and you can look and see where it stacks up. And if they don't email you back with a COA, don't buy it.
Yeah, no, that's really great advice. Thanks a lot for ruining Walmart as a potential sponsor of our show,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we'll forgive you for that. No, I think those are all great supplements. The trace minerals, is there any that you like? Is there something people are looking for?
Um, I don't really. So there's a lot of good brands of trace minerals. And if you actually listen to what those supplements are that I listed off, like fat soluble, trace minerals, um, you've got your B complex. That's a multivitamin,
Yeah.
right? That's what makes up a multivitamin. The reason I break it into three supplements is you get the efficacious dosing of them. A multivitamin sprinkles it in. But with trace minerals, really the thing that matters for people is the one thing I would watch out for is it iron or not iron? Do you have iron in it? Do you not have iron? Um, if iron causes you gut issues, that could be very disturbing to your gut if it has iron in it. If you're very low in iron, you might want to take one with iron if you tolerate it well. So that's kind of the biggest thing I look for in that. And make sure like a trace mineral with like 4 minerals is not it. Like you're looking for like 7, 10, 12.
Got it. Yeah, everything that you listed is just stuff we probably would have gotten a lot more of in our diets in the past that now it's just whether you, even if you're trying to, you might not be able to. Things like magnesium and whatever, like they're just lower. They don't get as much in our food in the environment anymore. So I like all those recommendations. Kind of going back to your personal story and relating that to what you recommend today. Did you learn anything in particular about your diet and the things that were, helping you, or in particular things that were hurting you that you needed to eliminate?
Yeah, I mean the low-lying fruit there is the mercury containing foods. So mercury, if you look at food sources of mercury, you're looking at things with high pesticides and then large fish. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Um, Shark, swordfish, grouper, lobster, tuna. Like those are the big offenders. Um, in my diet, so I after I finished my mercury detox, it was probably, I don't know, 2 years ago. I was like, you know what? I can have tuna. Like, I'm gonna go eat a bunch of tuna sushi. I woke up the next morning hungover, just
Wow.
felt like garbage. And so I just know I can't do that anymore because that just wrecks my system.
Wow.
Um, and then in terms of the rest of the things, with diet, what really helped me, I don't do a massive amount of fiber because it kind of messes with my gut. I do well cooked vegetables or like a soluble fiber because that works a lot better for me in my gut. I do high protein. I function really well on high protein, medium high fat. Um, just for me, that's what makes me feel the best. I like intermittent fasting um, just because of my work schedule and the way I flow. Like I'm super sharp in the mornings, got the ketones on board, like we're rocking and rolling. My caveat on that is, it tends to work really well for men and tends to not work so well for women, especially if we
Got it.
stretch out that intermittent fasting window. 12-12 for women, sure. But if we're going 16-8 or 18, it's starting to really affect the hormonal system of women.
Do you think that changes post menopause?
Huh. I would say potentially, but the caveat on this is if you're in hormone optimization therapy and everything looks like it should, probably not.
Got it. I appreciate that. And then anything on the exercise side of things, like you mentioned, sweating being really good. Does that mean people should be running or getting heart rates up pretty high and maintaining them? Like, is endurance sport good for detoxification? What have we learned as far as exercise?
No, dude, endurance sport is not good for detoxification. Sweating is good for detoxification. Yes, you do sweat during endurance sports, but what you will teach the body during endurance training is to be efficient with calories, right? And if our goal is to get lean to help detox because we're freeing up those toxins in fat, then holding on and being really efficient with our calories is not a great strategy.
Such a good point.
So really for detox, like you want to strength training as relating to detox, I think is very solid. Optimal metabolic health, which leads to a happier liver, happier kidneys. They're not dealing with massive amounts of blood sugar spikes and that kind of stuff. So I think strength training, building those glucose disposal organs, the muscles, is key. If I have to say, if we're going to get super, super specific, I'd have to say breathing deeply and consistently in training is actually good for detox because we do not want to stress the kidneys with a Valsalva if we're going through active detox. And that's like super niche, but like maybe your audience will find it helpful.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I didn't know that. That's a really, really good point. I've learned that certain lifestyle things, like when you're on the right kind of road when like seemingly everything kind of starts to get better. Like we're talking about detoxing very specific things like heavy metals, yet you're bringing metabolic health into the picture. Like, and those go hand in hand. You kind of fix one and you help the other one. You mentioned mental health. You fix some of those other things. Now your mental health is getting better. Like, it's cool that all of it gets help. There's not like, oh, here's this one diet and this one's good for your heart, but it's really bad for your liver. So here's the diet that's really great for your liver, but it's bad for your digestive system. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like the more you get the right lifestyle things in, they help globally. They help everything all at once.
Yeah, and I like to take that kind of thought and that theory and bring it to the bucket theory, right? So if you have a bucket and that bucket is your body, and as the bucket fills up, it's filling up with stress, right? The body can't interpret, it doesn't react differently to where the stress is coming from. So if the stress is coming from the fact that you sit on the couch all day and only do Zoom calls at work, or that you eat garbage, or that you have a ton of toxins, or that you've never strength trained, if all that's, or your relationship stress, or whatever it might be, the body interprets it the same. So it's filling up. And the thing is, if we can slow the fill and maybe poke a hole in the bucket and drain it, we remove the toxins, we remove the stress, we remove the garbage food. It's going to improve the whole system.
Excellent. Well, that's such a great analogy. I wanted to close by asking you a far less eloquent version of a question you asked me on your show. You asked me to name the three most simple things that people can do. We'll say, more specifically towards, detoxing from heavy metals and mold, which we didn't even get into, and all the other things, but also for like the greater metabolic health. If you were to give somebody three simple suggestions, what would those things be?
Yeah, so if I had to give three simple suggestions, keep it super simple. And I'm actually going to take a line from your book, where you said, I asked you about strength training, and you said hire a personal trainer. The first one is get a guide, right? Work with someone who knows what they're doing. So if you're thinking about detox, if you're thinking about optimizing your metabolic health, the best thing you can do is have that accountability and knowledge and support. So work with a physician, work with a personal trainer. So whatever your goals are, work with the person who can guide you in the right, most effective steps. I promise you that person, they might seem expensive to you, but they will save you time and money because they know what they're doing. So that would probably be the first one. The second one is drink water. I have to say, drink enough water, drink enough good, clean, purified water. And the reason is because this hits both metabolic health and detox very well, right? If we are not peeing and sweating because we don't have enough water intake, we are not detoxing. Our systems are not working optimally. And then you know how water functions for metabolic health: optimal muscle function, joint function, being able to move, increases the metabolism, like all the things, satiety. And so that would probably be number two. And if I had to say number three, I would say um, test, test. Do not try to detox anything you don't know if you have. Like run a test, get a quantitative measurement on where you're at with said toxin, with said metabolic metric. And then from there, you can go back to your guide and you can make a plan to attack that. That will save you time and money.
I love those. Those are great tips. You mentioned finding an expert and a guide, and certainly anybody would be very lucky to find you and your work and everything you guys are doing and have you guys as their guides because you guys are doing this right. It's really stood out to me in this conversation. Not only the ineffective things that people can do, but the things that people would do that are making the problem worse. So the smoothie is a great example. Everybody knows the green smoothie is a great way to detoxify, and we do one every January, and it's the best thing ever. And it's like actually that could be making things a lot worse. So I think the information that you provided here today has been super super helpful. And like I said, people would be very lucky to be able to work with you guys. Where can people go to find you and connect with you in your work, and how are you working with people today?
Yeah, so I mean, we're accepting patients at the clinic, and you can find us on thelcoa.com. That's THELCOA.com. If you want to work with us. But really, the thing I tell people when I'm on a podcast is like, I'm not trying to sell anything. Like, I just want to educate. I just want to teach. So go listen to our podcast. We don't have sponsors. We don't sell anything. It's literally, in fact, we spend tons of money producing this podcast. And it's really to teach, it's to get the education out there and to shine a light on some of these things that people aren't really talking about. So Longevity Unlocked is our podcast. Go listen to that. In fact, we give away free stuff on that thing.
Yeah, you
Um,
do a lot, actually.
yeah, like every so many episodes, we just like give something away for free, and like it's not something that's just like trivial either. Like it ranges from a couple $100 to $1,000.
Wow,
Like,
yeah, that's what it sounded like. You taught me what Easter egg meant in like gaming or tech or something.
yeah,
Like, what were they talking about Easter? It's like not even close to Easter.
yeah. So just listen to our podcast. That's the biggest thing. If you want to work with us, you can go to the lcoa.com. But I really just want to get that podcast out there, get it shared, and get people aware of these topics.
Well, we will, yeah, we really appreciate it. I love the show. I like that you do the shorter episodes and also, a little bit longer interviews. It's a great mix. To anybody out there listening, go give it a follow, subscribe, and make sure to leave a rating and review. It really helps to get good podcasts out there. And you're certainly doing a great one. And we really appreciate your appearance on this podcast today, Kyle. Thank you so very much for everything you do. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. It's been a lot of fun. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.